Welcome, everybody. I'm Karen McMullen. I'm the features programmer at Doc NYC. We're here tonight with the filmmakers of Ronnie'S, and that would be director Olivery Murray, editor Paul Twerartha, and composer Alex Heffes. Hi, guys.
Hello.
I'm in New York, they're in London, so we have a little time different going on, but I think they haven't started their happy hour, so we're in good stead, right, guys?
Just about.
All right, let's jump in. I saw this movie early on in our screening process. I really, really loved it. It gave me the sense of like finding a little, hidden gem in London's Soho. It was great. We get lots of music documentaries, but this one was very intimate. You had this amazing breadth of musicians, but it was also a really heartwarming story about Ronnie Scott, who's a really unique guy. And this is an iconic club. It's been going on for a while, and I'm sure other people have wanted to make this film. So Oliver, if you can tell us how you got to be the one to do it and how you came to the project.
Well, the idea came from the lead producer of the film, Eric Willard-White, who he'd been wanting to make a film about Ronnie's for years, and I think the club just weren't that interested, to be honest. I think that they didn't really feel that there was any. It was sort of London's worst kept secret, in a lot of ways. So to make a film would almost be letting the cat out of the bag. But he got them to decide to sort of have this kind of cultural moment where Soho is under threat and has been for quite some time. So it started there, and my pitch, I suppose, when I went in to talk about what I might, what my direction would be, is I am by no means an expert on jazz at all. So I kind of felt like I was sitting right there in the audience, wanting to be led into this world that I was really interested to know more about. And the more I discovered about the complexities of the man at the center of this story, the more excited I got in the development. And we started in October 2018, collecting and finding these little gems, and we were off.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, can you talk a little bit more about your process of finding that footage? You had so much. And Alex, you can probably pick up on this as well. I'm sorry, Paul, our editor, because you must have had footage from all kinds of formats and all degrees of quality. So if you could just talk about your process of coalescing all that footage.
Well, it starts with a really wide sweep. We kind of have the contacts in the archive world, and we get, it's always a real mixed bag. A lot of the time things are hiding in plain sight, because some archive is it's well known that TV stations and kind of public archives, they just don't have the space. So it takes a project like this one to kind of unearth things that have maybe just been gathering dust for, in some cases, like the Miles Davis performance, that was 30 years, I think, that sat there with no one paying it much attention. And we get all this stuff on hard drives and give it to Paul with a kind of, at the beginning, a loose script of the sort of 30 or so beats that I thought would be interesting to explore, and off he goes.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing to sort of, I mean, that structure, that original structure was invaluable to me, because in some respects it dictates what you are looking for. You let the film find itself in many regards, but it's nice to have a direction in which to look and in which to push. But I remember specifically there was a point where in one of the interviews, it was Wally Hauser who says that he's an interesting bunch of guys. And I remember specifically at that point that, you know, being really inspired by the character at the centre. And therefore it felt really important that we actually heard, we tried to get hold of as many different interviews as we were able to get from him, archival interviews, because it felt like if we could create a patchwork, if we could find the truth, because he was very professional in the way that he would present himself. And I think it was just, if we got a real breadth of content, we would then be able to sort of see the truth, because it would resonate through many different archival interviews. And I think that was one of the biggest satisfactions for us, because, you know, the truth did come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and lending itself to that truth coming out, I think was, you know, you guys had so much to put in there, but one of the things I really appreciated as a viewer is that you did let some of the performances play out, you know, so, and it was brilliantly done, because we got a taste of all that you had, but yet letting it breathe at some point. This was really beautiful, and I really, really appreciate that. Speaking of which, this combining all these disparate musical genres could have felt like a mishmash, but I think your composer did a good job of kind of providing some kind of a common thread that, you know, made it feel very seamless. Can you talk a little bit about your process?
Yeah, well, thank you. I guess Ollie just threw a really easy task at me. It's just like, put all of the great jazz legends on screen, and then can you just write some music to work with that, please? But of course, that's a dream for a composer, and I think really what we wanted to do is create another narrative, the interior narrative of Ronnie's world, because the club is there in all of its glory on the screen, and you've got Miles Davis, you've got Dizzy Gillespie, and all these incredible people. So what we were trying to do with the score is not really compete with that, but try and dig inside Ronnie's head, because there's this story of depression and this story of struggle with various different, you know, struggle with the club. And so the score is there to, as you say, to seamlessly come in and out of the performances, but also take us into that interior world. And it's very intimate, and I agree, I think the film's really intimate, and it's great. I think it's beautiful the way it's edited, and I really now appreciate that there's actually no voiceover in the film. Everyone is actually talking from the archive, and it makes it incredibly present and a sort of real feeling. So the music just has to make sure not to take you out of that, but bury down into that world.
Yeah, yeah, it was well done. Speaking of the mental illness aspect of it, you know, so many people, of course, grapple with that. And, you know, it's always a little sad, but it's also kind of refreshing to find out that, you know, there are other people, you know, people that have this are not alone, that, you know, you can have a successful career. But can you just talk about how you feel his depression and his kind of failure to disclose it, or his kind of suffering in silence for a while, how it affected his work, his partnership with Pete, and the club in general?
Well, I think it was, you know, his background, his working class, you know, proud working class London background, in that era, mental health wasn't a thing. I think he was embarrassed about it. I think it was just kind of written down as weakness in his mind. And I also think that it was that downward spiral where music was his medicine. I think music was what kept his head above water. And, you know, tragically, when he had problems with his teeth and could no longer play, he lost his ability to get his medicine. So I think that for me, it also became a story about how lots of other people, I think, in various different degrees, feel that way about music or entertainment and movies. it was an important thing to be able to talk about for everyone. So unfortunately for someone like Pete King, the guy in the background who actually I think ran the place, to answer your question about their relationship, I think it was that sort of unique brotherly love where Pete was kind of willing to shoulder that burden and carry it for Ronnie, so Ronnie could do his job out front, and Pete kind of nailed it all down backstage and did the accounts as well, if you could call them accounts. I don't know if they did much accounting, but you know what I mean. He kept the light, he paid the bills one way or another, I think. So yeah, hopefully if the film can give people joy and a kind of understanding that we do, as you say, all go through this, especially now at the moment with people being unable to go and be together and experience live music. Hopefully this film is as close as you're going to get to a great night out at Ronnie Scott's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what is happening with the club right now during COVID?
Well, it almost depends what day of the week you ask, because they're being incredibly inventive to open at different times and try and social distance, and they're putting on local acts. Obviously they're not the big acts aren't traveling, so people aren't coming to town and playing, but I always like this line that Ronnie used to use about the sort of struggling jazz musicians, is that if an atomic bomb landed on London, the things that would survive would be a cockroach and a jazz musician. It's just indestructible kind of guys.
It's pretty funny. And Paul, I know, going through all those decades of footage, there had to be some gems that did not make it into the final cut. Can you share with us, some of your favorite, each of you, if you could give us a favorite moment that didn't make it into the final?
I think the thing is that, you fall in love with so many assets that you come across. I think one of the greatest benefits of working in archival docs is the fact that it's just this wonderful opportunity to just explore and embrace all of this, these beautiful, in this case, acts that you would never see otherwise. I remember a day where we spent in a very small room in Ronnie Scott's, just delving through their archive, and it was wonderful, and that was one of many. So they're too innumerable to count, I would suggest. But what I would say is that the back and forth and the wrangle of what acts should make it in and what acts didn't end up making it in was nothing but a pleasure. It really was a pure pleasure, and we did, didn't we, Ollie? It was a real back and forth. Things came in and out. Artists came in and out, and there was a real push and pull to sort of get the final shape. But for me, the standout acts, they're all in there, and the film benefits from them.
I think especially, to Alex's point earlier, was the thing I'm probably most proud about is maintaining Ronnie's journey through all of these. Another version of this film could have been incredibly tricky because the music could knock you off your sort of, especially if you're trying to elicit particular emotions and things. Alex is very modest when he's talking about what he did, because we literally every 10 minutes threw him a curveball of, right now it's Buddy Rich and his orchestra, when we're actually coming off quite a melancholic moment, for instance. So I think at times that was how we made the choices as well, pairing Nina Simone with this very, very sad moment in Ronnie's life and starting to talk about using music to bring him back up again. That was some of my favorite choices we made, being able to do that and maintain the story thread.
Mm-hmm.
was that kind of made difficult choices easy, because although we maybe lost some fantastic musicianship, it was all about telling the story. It always circles back around to how do you tell the best story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you did tell the best story. It was, I'm not a big jazz fan, but it's just a well-told story, well-rounded. It was heartwarming, it was funny. It was really wonderful to get to know the man behind the club. So thank you all for your hard work. You did an excellent job. And I'm really happy that you're sharing it with the Doc NYC audience. So with that, I'm going to wrap up our Q&A. Thanks again for stopping by. And please, if you haven't seen this film, go out and see it. Good luck, guys, with it going
Thank you,
forward.
Karen.
Thanks.
Bye.